aller et découvrir le Pacifique et le soleil.
Hello Seawolves and welcome back to the show. I hope you're enjoying your Sunday, either starting to enjoy your Sunday or maybe you're already in the middle of it, or maybe some of you like me are almost in the end of Sunday. It's almost Monday again, almost time for a long Q&A session again tomorrow. And one question that I get a lot is, how do the skippers get warm or stay warm on board? And Sam actually made a good point yesterday.
Hello, so we've had a good day. We fixed the heater. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so there's no heaters on board. There's just dress in lots of layers and use a good, very nice sleeping bags. They have actually like really nice ones to stay warm when you're sleeping in your bunk. Okay, well, I hope you're all ready for a good Sunday Seawolf toast. I hope you something delicious in your cup. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Cheers, Wolves.
Et on arrive sur l'île d'Auckland. Magnifique, grand beau temps, c'est génial, beau temps. Voilà, on s'apprête à contourner Auckland Island. Il y a pas mal d'albatros, il y a une petite île un peu plus plate que le reste, séparée de l'île principale. C'est magnifique, là-bas on a un peu comme en Irlande, les falaises, la verdure sur le dessus, un peu comme ici là, dans la lumière là. Voilà, trop beau, super content d'être venu jusque là en tout cas. Wow. Ça donne envie de s'arrêter, moi je reviens un jour.
Now, I'm afraid that, well, this series of breakages, let's call it, is continuing as, you know, we have some strong weather in the back of the fleet now. And a few hours ago, Hungarian skipper Szabo reported that he broke the starboard D2 diagonal shroud on his mast, and this happened while he was sailing on the port tack in strong winds, gusting over 40 knots. And yeah, the shroud, so that's one of the side cables that sort of keeps the mast upright, and is very important for the rigging. Now he himself is not injured, and the boat itself doesn't have any other damage. He took a third reef in the mainsail and jibed, so he's now on the side where the shroud is good at, because when you're sailing on one side, that means that effectively one side of the cables that are keeping the mast up are inactive. They're like almost loose really, they're not really doing anything, while the other side is taking all of the load. And so that's basically what he did. Yeah, and so he's basically sailing that way, keeping the rigging safe, and no doubt when the storm settles down or when the strong weather is through, then he can try to see if there's some way to fix it. Then Dennis van Bijnberg, also a problem due to the strong wind. He broke either his main or all of the active wind vanes that he has on board. So the wind vane is the kind of little arrow on top of the mast that tells the computer, so the routing computer, your autopilot, etc., where the wind is coming from and how fast the wind speed is. So these are two super important pieces of data, and apparently, and this sometimes happened, like in earlier Vendeeglobe, skippers would very often break them because you know, sort of they're mostly designed for the racing, standard cruising, which is like a day, a few days. But on a long trip like this with extremely strong, you know, storm winds for days and days, they very often break in races like this. And so one solution that many of the boats have is that they have a spare that they can put low on the back of their boat on a pole so that they at least have some wind input. But I guess Dennis doesn't have that, or at least he's not able to count on his spares, or maybe he had a spare and the spare broke as well. It is also interesting that there are now wind vanes that don't have parts. I know that Conrad, for example, has this on his boat, so it's like a completely new way of measuring wind, and that way it's like there's no moving part, so it can't break. At least it can, well, everything can break, but it can't break in a more conventional way. And I know that several of the skippers are using them, but I guess not Dennis van Wijnberg. So yeah, he's also in strong winds and waiting now for perhaps a moment with less winds to be able to climb his mast and take care of that problem. So a lot of people waiting for less winds so they can get up into the mast and fix some things. And there was also one other kind of interesting question from Marcus. And he said, the longer I watch the race, the more I ask myself what role the different factors play in the outcome of a race like this. On the one hand, of course, there is the technique of the boat and the skill of the skipper and the weather gods and their behavior towards the competitors. It all seems to be a decisive factor. So far, the weather gods have favored Charlie and the leading group. Now the situation seems to be changing for the chasers and especially for the group around Boris Herman. So my question to you is, how would you assess the proportion of these three factors in terms of victory and defeat? Regards, Marcus. Thank you for the question, Marcus. Very good question. And it's very hard to pinpoint one factor because there isn't one factor. I would say that if there's one illusion for you guys that are watching this that are not sailing or are more like the weekend sailors and you never really experienced this type of, you know, longer race environment, let's say, or where it really, you know, everything you do starts to matter. So like it's a very, very competitive sailing situation over a longer time. I would say that, of course, we're all a bit gadget nerds. And I love great technology as much as the next guy, and I'm very happy to work with Orca and their plotter, and it's great, like the data's great, and I love to, you know, like optimize everything when I'm on a nice course and try to get, you know, my polar up to 100% and get like the highest possible speed out of my boat, and like I really enjoy that. But I think there is a big tendency here, and that goes for all major sailing races, to ultimately kind of overestimate the impact of all the technology around. So I would say that there are a lot of pieces of more of the rigging technology and like the designs of the boats, the fact that we have foils now, kind of like hardware, let's say, so the real sailing parts that make a big difference. So do you have foils or do you not have foils? In this race, we can clearly see that the new generation foils and all the updates that have gone on there, it's absolutely making a huge difference, right? I mean, the leaders of our fleet now are almost, you know, some of them are past Auckland already, sort of passing New Zealand right now, while the last one in the race still hasn't passed the Cape of Good Hope, and the rest is kind of strewn around the whole Southern Ocean behind over that space. So the distances are literally thousands of miles, so it's enormous. Now that's not all due to the foils, but it's very definitely a major factor. And so those parts of technology are very important, but I would say that ultimately all of the predictive software, let's say, that they have, so all of the, you know, the sort of the guesstimation, the weather, all that stuff, it's super important because it gives the guys like a path of several days and a general overview for the next like 3-4 days of what they can sort of expect and the general direction that things are going to kind of come from, right? But in the end, like for me, but I think that goes for a lot of sailors, in the end, it's still very much about reading the actual situation, right? If you look back at all the different shots that you see from all the different captains, the story that they're more or less saying all the time is, well, the prediction said this, but then this happened. Well, the prediction said this, but then this happened. Well, there should be no wind, but now there's wind. Or, well, there should be some wind here, but there isn't. And the essence of the thing that constantly happens in this race is all of the different systems that we have. They predict some things, and generally there's kind of a wide range, right? So it could be pretty stormy or like medium wind or low wind. And as far as the range of what it could be, it's generally right. So is it going to be like a mega stormy day or like a more quiet day? Those things it usually gets right. But the actual strength of the wind, the actual exact direction of the wind, you know, the behavior that clouds have a major influence. So if you're under a big cloud, you can suddenly have no wind or suddenly much more wind. That depends on the type of cloud it is, depends on the time of day. Like there are lots of factors. And so in the end, all of the in-the-moment choices make the big difference.
Hello, a nice flat day in the Pacific. We're ripping along. Going pretty quick, but you can see behind us there's this black cloud. And behind that there's 25 knots, then 45 knots a bit later, so it's chasing us down. And the faster we go, the longer we stay in the flat water and the nice conditions. And if we slow down, we get hit by that. So I got to keep going, but fairly quickly we're going to take the big sail down and get the small one up. Until now, we'll enjoy it. Until then, we'll enjoy it.
So when you're saying like the weather gods favor Charlie D'Alin, no. Charlie D'Alin is, if any, like he's a great sailor, but sort of within the fleet, among the sailors and everything, he's also really known as sort of like, maybe a bit like how you guys see me, like half a meteorologist, right? He's very good with weather, but not just on the computer, not just sort of like making predictions and making routers, but especially going outside and just looking around and saying, hey, I see some clouds there, the sky has kind of this color, I think, and then, you know, apply that and translate it to what he has to do with his boat. And that results, you know, in Charlie's case, in just sort of, if you read every few hours the new changing situation, right? What you see on your computer, what you see in your predictive models, but most importantly, kind of forgetting that after you've looked at it, after you've made all your calculations that are based on the models, then you have to look at what's actually happening, right? You have to sail in the situation that's actually there. And Charlie is in first position because he is, you know, by some margin, and there are a few that are very close to him, right? Like there are several people, Thomas Ruyant and like Jeremy Bijou. Like it's not like the difference between Charlie and them is like miles, but he is. You've seen it throughout the different races in the kind of the Maka circuit. That is just super good. But what's his superpower is, on the one hand, like reading all the information, using all kind of the modern tools that we have, but then in the moment translating that into a feel which cannot be explained. Like some people have it, they have a feel for sailing, and other people don't, and you can't really teach that. And I have taught, like, you know, literally maybe 1,000 people like to sail over all the years, like on my actual boat, taking them out on days, things like this.
These are pretty good.
I can go even more a bit left.
Have a two-man team on the helm, no autopilots allowed.
And some people pick it up really quickly and you don't really have to explain, and they just like feel what's going on and just sort of get it. And other people, you can explain things like 10 times and it just, there is no feel there, right? And so I would say that feel, don't underestimate that, because all of the other stuff, of course, the type of boat that you have, the foils, everything, all the thought that goes in there, it is super important because it sort of sets a maximum of what you can do. So if your boat doesn't have like the most modern foils and everything, you're just, you're driving a car that just has a top speed of X amount of miles, and if somebody has a more modern, more optimized boat, then the boat is just able to go faster. So if you push it to its maximum, it's just going to go 5-6 knots faster than the other boat that you push to the maximum, right? So there's just a real physical difference there. But once you kind of level all that out and just put people in the situation, in the end, this race is still all about the skippers who, on their own level, Yoann Richome is a great example now, still ahead of the non-foiler fleet right now as we're shooting this. Even though for 2 days now the model has been saying, oh, Isabel and Ellen Rohrer are going to be like way faster, and because the model just thinks, okay, it's this speed, I know the polar of their boat, so this is going to happen, right? Because the one thing that it cannot take into account, and this goes for every possible model on every possible field you can imagine, is the reaction, right? Is like, yeah, we know that something is going to happen, and if nothing reacts, then that will be the thing, but there's always all kinds of forces reacting. And in Yoann Richome's case, this is just a very smart man with lots of experience who, just really knows how to attack every situation, optimize his boat, even though he has a new boat, right? So he's still getting used to it compared to maybe some other people who have had their boat longer, like Ellen Rohrer has had his boat like longer than Yoann, for example, now. But yeah, he has that particular feeling, he has that particular, je ne sais quoi, like he has that. And this is, in the end, the most important fact, is this undescribable, how it all comes together, of just having a feel for, and you either have that or you don't. If you take anything from this race, like my advice would be like life in general is like, yeah, predictions are great, but in the middle, like all these skippers have to make choices in the moment, and all those choices are always about whatever they thought was going to happen, not happening. Because if everything goes the way they think it's going to go, they'd be like smooth sailing, they'd be like hanging back, chilling all day long, like, oh, well, everything, I prepared this an hour before, and then that, and they all know how to prepare things perfectly. But what they're busy with is solving problems. 1 or 2 problems, big problems every day, things breaking, things not going the way they want, much stronger weather, much lighter weather, sail changes. It's all dealing with the unexpected. And no matter how much technology we pack, you cannot take away the factor of the human reacting to the unexpected. So that is really what this race is about, and that is kind of my answer to your long answer to your question. But hope that makes some things clear. Okay, well, dive in here with me for the tactical analysis. So yeah, you can see that actually a lot has happened here with the 3 chins on the front lines. They're all pretty speedy, so it's good to see that Sebastian on his good foil doing 21.3 knots right now. We have Paprec Arkea, Yoann Richome, same speed, and Charlie a little bit slower over the last 4 hours. He's doing actually the same speed now. He was a bit slower because I think he was in a bit less wind. So you can clearly see that Yoann has also caught up to Charlie in a big way. I mean, yesterday they were something like almost 200 miles still away, and now it's 85. So he's gained another like 100 or so miles. Now that's not a factor of Charlie sailing slow, that's just the fact that Charlie had some less wind, and the wind of course always moving sort of with them now from west to east. So both Yoann and Sebastian just had the stronger winds a bit earlier, which made them compact a little bit. And yeah, they're kind of, if we look at the routages, you can see that they're getting ready for this really long shot. Like I said yesterday, so remember the routages predicted that basically it would be better for both Yoann and Sebastian to take a more southern route, something that it was drawn a bit more like this, let's say. And I already said then that that's actually literally one of those feelings things. Like I look at the screen for 1 second and I think I said something yesterday like, yeah, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to be sticking like pretty close together. And the reason for that is not so much the wind, but in a long sailing race, it's very risky to go in a different weather system than the other people that you're sailing against. So it's kind of a tactical decision that comes kind of on top of the weather prediction. And in this particular case, Charlie was so far ahead of the rest of these two guys in particular for a while, that Charlie was kind of in his own weather. So very often he would have slightly different weather than the rest, right? And the first sort of step to catching up with somebody if you're behind is to get in the same weather, because when you're like close enough to somebody and you're in the same weather systems, in the same clouds, or in the same low pressure in these cases, then if you play your cards right, it's going to be very hard for that other boat to escape, because they're going to be having more or less the same wind as you, same weather challenges, more or less same sea state. So you're putting yourself in a very similar situation. Whilst if you split off because you think, okay, well, maybe I can get some more wind there, that's always a risk, because if you stay with them, no matter what happens, you will have the same weather. So if he slows down, you slow down. If he speeds up, you speed up, and you're gonna be close. And then it's just up to that, what am I gonna do right now? I see it's into the little details. Are you better with what is actually happening around and sort of sailing on your gut and making the right, moment-to-moment decision? That's what you'll be winning on. So it's like skipper to skipper, you're in the same situation. Whilst if both Sebastian and Yoann would have made a different decision here and say, hey, we can go for this slightly different weather system, but then we're putting again like about maybe 100 or 150 miles, sort of north-south distance between the two of us. And then we're going to be in a slightly different wind system. Now maybe you get more wind, that's great. But if you're unlucky and the prediction doesn't come true, then you're going to be in a different system from Charlie. And in that case, if Charlie has more wind again, then Charlie's going to run away. So it's always a bit that sort of, do you either go for the small differences and see what battle you can do there, or do you gamble that you will get a bit further away a completely different weather system which will be better? But yeah, the gamble is very big, because many times the predictions won't exactly come true, or to be different, or sometimes it's just completely literally the opposite of what is predicted sometimes. And so in this particular case, looking at the view yesterday, I just sort of saw it real quick and I was like, well, the weather systems look like comparable, not that different. So I understand that the computer model is like, well, I see a little bit more wind there, so we'll go there. But then for my mind, it's like automatic thinking almost, where you're like, well, but that upside is too small to risk going in a different system if they're now within like 80 miles, in Yoann's case at least, of Charlie. So I kind of bet he's going to be staying in the same weather, because that'll be more optimal for him. They can just race each other on the merits. And they're like halfway down the race now, so ideally you don't want to take like really crazy risks. In this particular case, there's very strong weather coming like in a day and a half that they're all going to be in together also. So right now it's all about staying close to Charlie, not letting him escape again, and then waiting for your opportunity to somehow sail past. So that's kind of how this type of thinking comes together. Let's say, hope that you're following me. Okay, then the middle, lots of very interesting things happening there. I should say that Boris the Herminator is definitely on a very fast screech here, similar to the guys in the front. So they've been having the stronger winds earlier as it's moving sort of from west to east. And so both Isabel Joschke and Samantha Davis here are having a lot of speed first. Then, of course, Justine Metreau and Boris. And all of them have been making good use. So you see that the whole fleet, like I said yesterday, also more and more compacting. But Boris especially seems to have found, first of all, a beautiful route. So he's positioned himself excellently, making himself the most southerly boat. So his route is going to be a little shorter than that of the rest. So every mile that they sail, he's going a little bit, it's like going the inner turn. So that's how he's like quite quickly gaining ground on the rest of the fleet, which is a little bit more to the north. At the same time, he's on a perfect sort of beam reach, maybe even a little bit, if you look at the apparent wind, against him, which is always great, if you have that gives even more apparent wind. And so yeah, he's just very nicely, let me put off here, nicely blasting at 20.9 knots over the last 24 hours. His average is 20.4, so really, really fast. And although we see now similar speeds in the rest of the fleet there, as far as average speeds is over the last 24 hours, most of them, because they have just lower wind still, like it's all, the stronger winds are only just almost reaching them. So they've been doing 12, 13, 15, 16. I see Jeremy Bijou here, even 9 knots average over the last 24 hours. So that explains like how these guys in the back are able to come up so strongly again. And I think that this is actually a major opportunity for Boris. And I mean, we're all expecting a lot from him, having his experience in the ocean race. And I think here in this particular situation, he is really proving his case. You know, he has a great boat. Has a great team. He's a fantastic sailor. He's very fast now, and I think position-wise, like we can look for a second at the routages. Again, it's just a prediction, right? And so if we kind of scroll forward, like you can see kind of how the weather, like he's nicely sailing like right on the lip of that stronger wind. And yeah, I think that based on this weather, I don't think his route will be this, but more of a like I think he'll skate the corner a little bit more through actually. But yeah, I think that it's not beyond the realm of possibilities, let's say, if yeah, maybe like Paul Melot. Yeah, Paul Melot's in 9th right now and Boris is in 10th. And I think that in maybe 24 hours or so, it's not, like the model is not saying that this will happen, but I think it's not beyond the realm of possibility that Boris could get very close. Like maybe he'll, you know, hit the 9th spot like for a while at least in the next like 24 to 48 hours. And if he gets lucky with the wind, so if it's a little low in the top still a bit longer, and he's able to really take this very like tight route compared to the ice gate, he could get like right, sort of take the inner turn on all 3 of them and maybe sort of tie, so then it'd be sort of like in 8, 9, 7, sort of around those positions, and they might interchange those positions several times. But I would say that the distance south for Boris right now compared to this trio here gives him a great opportunity to actually get in there. So for the Boris fans, next 24 to 48 hours with this stronger wind coming up can get very interesting for Boris, and he might just put himself in a very good position there. And I think it should be good for him also, like it will really motivate him, I think. Then we have Guyot Water Family, Benjamin Dutroux and Pip Hare. Pip Hare similarly taking the strong winds and running out a bit now on Romain Athanasio. So I think that'll make her very happy. Like she's more to the south, so better route also. And quite a few miles ahead now. And if she goes like this, she's kind of been, you know, creeping up to Benjamin Dutroux. Now also he's been doing 17-ish or so knots over the last 24 hours. She has been 18.6, so about a knot and a half, 0.3 knot faster. So if she keeps that up, and she's still gonna be getting these stronger winds also before they do. So yeah, with a little luck and with her feistiness, who knows, she might actually get to 14th place if you place her cards right over the next 2 days. Then of course Damien Seguin, well, we talked about his problems yesterday. That's still going on. So you can see that he's about to get hit by some very strong winds again. So like I said yesterday also that he would like do several gybe. So like I said, didn't do that, just basically sailed up. And yeah, I hope he's keeping his repair steady and just being careful with his boat. And then, yeah, what I discussed earlier, so Jean still in 18th position. And yeah, they're nicely riding the back of that low that kind of passed right in front of them. And it's interesting to see that again, as far as like average speeds go, we see that Jean Le Cam with his non-foiler here, last 24 hours, 17.5 knots. With Isabelle Joschke, 16.4, so he's a good knot faster. Alan Rora, 17.1, so also 0.4 slower than Jean. And Giancarlo Pedote, 17.2, so Out of all of them, over the last 24 hours, at least his 4 front runners, Yoann still like in a good position and also the fastest. So for now, still hanging on to his lead there of the second fleet. So then we have like a nice group of non-foilers here, plus Arnold Boiseries. We have Conrad, of course, here doing a nice speed again, now 15 knots or so. That group just nicely sailing together. We see that we have another sort of little group that formed here, kind of sailing together with Tutgut, Olivier, of course, Kajiro Sharishi, and Antoine Cornec. And then look all the way to the back. We have the letter group, Dennis van Wijnberg. So like I told you, he having some problems with his wind instruments. We have Fabrice Amadeo, we have Manuel Cosin, and then all the way in the end we have Zabo, and yeah, like I said, so he has a problem with his rigging. Yeah, sailing up now sort of towards South Africa. I have no idea what the plan there is, so I can imagine, because this is a shroud, so very important and very dangerous for the rig, kind of similar, different but similar to what happened to Lewis. And so also based on his course, kind of heading straight for land now, yeah, on the one hand he's avoiding the strong weather and just kind of has to sail on one particular direction now to save his rig, I think. Could also mean that they're still waiting to assess the exact damage, especially if the damage is high up and he can't exactly see. He knows he's broken, but he can't exactly see what's going on. May also be a precaution to just you know, go as close to land now as fast as possible. Wait for a bit quieter weather to actually check the damage and see if it's fixable. And if it's fixable, of course, go on. But if it's not fixable, that also places him close to land. In case they're, you know, maybe thinking like this could be like so serious, similar to what happened to Lewis, that it might actually be something that makes Sabo ultimately retire from the race. We'll have to wait and see. And yeah, so that's it for the tactical analysis today. Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode again. Of course, please make sure to like and subscribe. Enjoy your Sunday and see you in 24 hours. Ciao, ciao, wolves. Oh yeah, and make sure to leave your questions for the Q&A session tomorrow in the comments below. Bye-bye.